I'm going to talk about mutation negative metastatic NSCLC, and to some extent I will cover squamous cell carcinoma as well, with the permission of chair. The patients who do not have target. These days we have been so very proactive in finding out the target in smallest percentage of the patients, and often we end up finding no target. So it depends on how do we define the mutation negative NSCLC. What mutations are we testing and how are we testing? These are the two very important questions. I'm sure the next speakers are going to touch upon these questions. So I will briefly touch these questions and then proceed to the treatment of the patient with no targets, where we don't have any regret for not finding any targets. So if you look at testing for various targets in the real world practicalities world over. So this is a 2018 presentation I have taken from CCO. It shows that testing rates for EGFR and ALK globally have improved over time, but till 2018 it was 87 and 70% respectively. It means that 13% of the patients are not tested for EGFR globally, and 30% of the patients are not tested for ALK. For ROS1, it is 15 to 28%, and we don't have any data about BRAF and the other mutation whatsoever. So we need to do a lot in ensuring that we are searching for the target, so that before telling the patient that patient does not have any target, we are sure that patient does not have any target. So this is the list which I have downloaded today from NCCN. It lists practically everything that has been exploited successfully in managing the patient. EGFR, ALK, ROS1, BRAF, MET, exon 14 skipping mutation, RET, and PDL1 testing for adenocarcinoma. And most of these also are being tested in squamous cell carcinoma as well. If the patient was never smoker, if there was a small biopsy specimen, and if there was mixed histology. Because for each of these mutations, we have some therapy which is available. If we look at squamous cell carcinoma, let us look at what does MM and LL means. So LL footnote means that testing for NTRK should be done, it should be included in our testing now. MM is the frequency of EGFR mutation in squamous cell carcinoma is less than 3.6%. So if there is no strong reason for looking at mutation, it may be omitted. But nowadays we are testing many of the mutations for frequency less than 2% as well. So what I believe is that for squamous cell carcinoma also we need to offer the broad molecular profiling. So if we assume that there is no mutation and PDL1 is less than 1%, whether should we test TMB or not? And how do we test TMB? So I don't test TMB in my practice because I am not sure how it should be tested, and I don't know how my labs are testing it and how validated TMB testing is. So let us look at the data of patients with no targets. So CheckMate 227 is one study where PDL1 more than as well as less than 1% is tested. So let us blind the data on more than 1%. Let us look at the data of part 1B. The number of patients is 550. And if we look at the 3-year OS update in the patient with PDL1 less than 1%, at the end of 3 years, what we can see is that with Nivo EP, the survival is 34%. With Nivo chemotherapy, it is 20%. And with only chemotherapy, it is 15%. So with Nivo AP, it is much better than the other two arms, and it is statistically significant as well. If we look at another study with the similar combination, CheckMate 9LA, little different, where Nivo at a fixed dose, EP, 1 milligram per kilogram 6 weekly, plus 2 cycles of chemotherapy, is a little strange design, but nonetheless, this is the study, and we have the data at 1 year from this study versus chemotherapy alone. In the entire population, the stratification is more than 1% or less than 1% of PDL1 expression. In the entire population, at the end of 1 year, the survival is 63% versus 47%, while 40% of these patients were having PDL1 expression less than 1%. If we look at the survival data according to subset, look at the left corner with PD-L1 less than 1%. At the end of 1 year, the survival is 63% versus 45% with only chemotherapy, with a decent hazard ratio of 0.62 as well as the decent 95% confidence interval. A similar study, IM power 150, where there are 3 arms and we have the data of comparison of ABCP, that is atezolizumab, bevacizumab, carbopacli versus bevacizumab, carbopacli, which once upon a time was considered to be the standard treatment. Unfortunately, we don't have the data of atezolizumab, carboplatin, and paclitaxel so far. We do have this response data, which I am not going to show in the slides, but we have the survival data. In the entire population, there is a decent improvement in the PFS as well as good improvement in the overall survival with a good hazard ratio of 0.78 and good 95% confidence interval less than 1. Good p-value as well. And look at the right last curve for PD-L1 negative, hazard ratio is 0.82. The survival is 17.1 versus 14.1. It is 3 months gain in the survival by adding atezo to bevacizumab, carbo, and pacli. Now, when bevacizumab, carbo, pacli came in the practice before about 15 years, we were excited and we said that for the first time we crossed the boundary of 12 months in the survival of the patients, and here it is 17.1 months. Even though the p-value as well as the 95% confidence is the crossing 1, but this is the subset. This was not the primary endpoint for the study. It is showing 3 months improvement in the survival. Keynote 189 is an important study having 616 patients. Here also, 1/3 of the patient, look at this bar, 1/3 of the patient were having PD-L1 less than 1%. And if you look at the survival, look at the left curve. At the end of 1 year, the survival is 61.7 versus 52.2 months. And that is statistically significant with a hazard ratio of 0.59. So immunotherapy is giving a very good result in the outcome of our patients with low PD-L1 as well. This is the pooled analysis of various studies of pembrolizumab chemotherapy versus only chemotherapy. And at the end of 1 year and 1.5 years, in every subset of the patient, immunotherapy with chemotherapy is having significantly better survival as compared to chemotherapy alone. So if we look at the treatment of adenocarcinoma, the preferred treatment is systemic therapy. I will tell you what systemic therapy we should be giving. At the end of few cycles treatment response evaluation, if there is the response or stable disease at the end of 4 to 6 cycles, we continue bevacizumab if that was the treatment we started with. Pemetrexed if that was the treatment we started with. Atezolizumab, bevacizumab as per 150 study. Gemcitabine is category 2B. Nowadays, nobody is giving gemcitabine, and switch maintenance to pemetrexed is something we should do if we didn't start with pemetrexed. So these are the 2 studies of historical interest. And for squamous cell carcinoma, there is little, if any, role of maintenance chemotherapy. But if you started with pembrolizumab as per Keynote 407 study, we should continue with pembrolizumab. So for adenocarcinoma, look at the left sided box. The preferred treatment is pembro, carbo, pemetrexed or pembro cisplatin pemetrexed, and the other recommended options are ABCP or AB with carbo neb paclitaxel, or Nivo AP with chemotherapy. And then there is a long list of useful in certain circumstances where there is contraindication to immunotherapy, and there is the entire long list. We could give bevacizumab with chemotherapy, which can be paclitaxel or pemetrexed with platinum. For squamous cell carcinoma, the preferred is the pembro carbopacli or pembro carbo and neb-pacli, and other treatment could be Nivo AP or Nivo AP with chemotherapy. And then there is the long list of various regimens for the patients who are not candidate for immunotherapy. So what I have written in bracket, would dream to do in my practice, but what I actually do is I test for surely for EGFR, ALK, ROS1 and PD-L1. I do broad molecular profiling. So EGFR, ALK, ROS1 and PD-L1 I do in more than 80% of my patients. I send broad molecular profiling from the tissue, including EGFR, ALK, ROS1, BRAF, RET, NTRK, and MET exon 14 in about half of my patients, little less than half of my patients. What we also should do is that a tissue, because of the tissue heterogeneity, can miss some of the mutation, and we simultaneously should be doing liquid biopsy, either Guardant 360 or Foundation Liquid. These are the validated tests, and some of our laboratories of our country are doing with their own algorithm. So we should be testing EGFR ALK ROS1 by the rapid method. The result is available in 5 to 7 days. Simultaneously, we should do the broad molecular profiling from tissue as well as from the liquid biopsy. If the result is available once the treatment is started, if mutation comes positive, we may change the treatment to the targeted therapy. I am not sure about using tumor mutation burden. This is my last suggestion. I incorporate chemotherapy in my patients, and my preference is Pembro Carbo Pem for adenocarcinoma and Pembro Carbo Pecli for squamous cell carcinoma. Thank you very much.